For only 100 years of history of Korean Catholicism, the period of persecutions and ordeals, Catholics were scattered all across the country. Father Choi Yang-up became a beam of light and realized the unseen values for Korean churches and believers in times of darkness. We earnestly pray for beatification and canonization of Father Choi Yang-up, the genuine Korean.
우리 번님네야 우리 본향 찾아가세.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool and I love it.
I write novels. When I come to a shrine like this belly and perceive things, I sometimes feel that I go back to those days 160 years ago. I imagine that he was sweating a lot and washing his hands.
He walked all night, all because he thought that the people of God were waiting. This seems to be what made him keep walking.
Well, the steps taken by the Father Choi Yang-up were always accompanied by the people from the Catholic village he left and the people he would meet in the future.
The vocation as the Korean priest was so great, but his empathy penetrating deep into the hearts of Korean people was so enormous.
As you mentioned empathy, the letters of Father Choi Yang-up are filled with more empathy compared with the letters of Father Kim Dae-gun.
몇 해까지 즐기우며 빈궁제와 만타한들 몇 해까지 근심하랴.
From right here, you can directly see Kanolje. When the police officers appear in the center of Anyang City, they will spot this first. The front is filled with rocks, making it an ideal fortress. Father Choi Yang-up wrote his final letter in Jung-gu. The situation then was so hard due to the Gyeongshin persecution. He traveled all around the country for 12 years. Right then, he was pushed to the limit. He had nowhere to go by then. He thought that it would be his last breath. So I think that he must have pulled through to spend his last 4 months in his life.
Look at the map of the Chungcheongnam-do. Cheongyang is the center. Yesan, Gongju, Hemi, and Seosan are connected like this. This part combining Buyeol and Cheongyang is called the lower estuary. The estuary means the place through which water enters. Many people come and go. The environment was geographically good to preach the gospel. I think that Choe Yang is like a crossroad for our gospel. In 1784, Choi Han-il, the great-grandfather, was baptized by Ludovico E. John Chang to have the faith for the first time in the family. Choi Han-il gave birth to Choi In-ju, gave birth to Francisco Choi Kyung-hwan, the father of Father Choi Yang-up. The Saint Francisco Choi Kyung-hwan met Maria Yi Sung-le and gave birth to 6 sons. The first son is Father Thomas Choi Yang-up.
In 1821, Choi Yang-up was born and his family maintained Catholic faith over 4 generations.
I heard that Saint Choi Kyung-hwan was very honest and simple while Maria Yi Sung-le, 3 years older than him, was very brave and bold. They were commenting that they always emphasize harmony. Their most important family motto was to be filial to parents, be harmonious among brothers and sisters, and maintain good relationships with neighbors. Saint Choi Kyung-hwan was also had a big heart for the vulnerable people. When he went to the market and bought the parchments, he would choose imperfect ones and brought them home. When he was asked why he bought such imperfect parchments, when there must have been perfect ones, he would say, if no one bought such imperfect parchments, the sellers would be in trouble. Father Choi Yang-up, as the first son, must have learned a lot most from such a father.
Thinking about the story of the Father's Holy Family, I often redirect and strengthen my faith as a parent.
Francisco Choi Kyung-hwan, he is my great-great-grandfather. If you grow up within God's love and parental love, your personality cannot go wrong. Once I came home from school and fell asleep. I woke up to the sound of an evening prayer of them. I woke up right away and prayed together with them. I blamed them for not waking me up. Just like me and Father Choi Yang-up, directly witnessing and experiencing the parents' religious life, I also prayed with them. Based on this, we can say that we grow up through our parents' faith.
At that time, Korean aristocrats used to go to China to study. When they went to study abroad, they were exposed to and received new civilizations. While they were learning Western studies, Catholicism spread among the aristocrats.
The order to ban ancestral rites resulted in the first great crisis of Catholicism in Joseon.
The conflict over the idea that Catholics' neglect of morality shall not be accepted accelerated to become a political issue.
Most of the church leaders in Joseon died during the persecutions. They said that they must maintain their religious life.
They hid into the deep and remote mountains away from the crowds and the persecutions.
They started their religious life anew in the Catholic villages they formed themselves. We can say that it was the time when the Catholic villages were formed in an unprecedented way in the world.
Gyeongsuwon is the oldest Catholic village. Just 1 kilometer away from there lies Gyeonggi-do. When you see the map of this Catholic village, the surprising fact is that There are many boundaries between the provinces that are nearer from each other.
Peter Shintebo, a citizen of Yongin, was very wealthy. He spent all the money to move. Up to 50 to 60 people migrated in large scale at one time. If asked, he answered that they were his servants. Actually, they were his fellow Catholics.
They moved from Gyeonggi-do. They passed Yangpyeong and settled in Pyeongsu-won. They cultivated the mountains and made slash and burn fields. They fired pottery in kilns and sold them. They also made charcoal and sold them for their livelihood.
Choi Yang-up's family also left Cheongyang and passed through Seoul, Gangwon-do, and Bupyeong and moved to Surisan, Gwacheon to escape from the persecution.
Our history persecuted the religion so much, but the faith grew more and more from within. We can directly see the traces expressed to hide that I am Catholic through our eyes.
When Father Jumunmu, the first foreign priest of Joseon, was martyred in 1801, the necessity to cultivate Korean priests was deeply shared, followed by education for priests. Thomas Choi Yang-up, who was recruited first, pledged to keep the rules to be kept by theology students, along with Chae Kim Dae-gun, and went to Macau to study.
나와 조선 부교지의 나의 후계자들은 장성들에게 약속합니까?
예, 약속합니다.
In December 1836, he left Seoul, passed Pyeonmun in mainland China, and arrived in Macau in June the following year.
It is easy to say, but imagine this. The young boys, only 16-year-olds, walked for 6 months just to study. But they made it.
They were just small. They were far healthier. They were far more excellent students. Declaration as a theology student took place 5 months earlier for Father Choi Yang-up.
안녕하세요, 주무님. 네.
환영합니다.
네.
I am a Paris Foreigner father. These are my seniors who were martyred over the persecution in Korea. At the time, all the Western civilizations were introduced in Macau. When Choi Yang-up went to Macau for the first time, he must have been shocked a lot. The language and the food. Everything must have been difficult. His academic records were excellent. He was humble and meek while also being so strong, because he could win only when he was strong.
The teaching father was watching him. He could talk to him about his life. He played a role as an excellent father, brother, and teacher. That's why he was guided, all thanks to such people.
His first letter was written after his fellow Kim Dae-gun left for Macau on a warship named Aragon.
Everyone left me, away from my soul fellow Andrew. I'm all alone in this small room. My only wish is to be with God.
Sorry to say, Choi Yang-up's first exploratory homecoming journey following Kim Dae-gun was stopped in Baekgyeong. Also, in 1836, his 2 attempts for homecoming failed over stricter surveillance over the national borders due to the Byungho persecution.
Liberated at last from the long and boring life, and hoping for reunions with fellows, I was overjoyed to reach Byungmun. But this hope was destroyed completely.
Choi Yang-up was filled with indescribable sorrow over the news of his parents' martyrdom, the persecution in his country, and Father Kim Dae-gun's martyrdom.
I was astonished over the miserable news. I was in deep sorrow that couldn't be consoled over the sad reality of myself and my country, especially the death of my most beloved Father Andrew would be the most deplorable news for all of us.
둘이서 같이 그리스도의 신앙을 어떻게 전파하겠다는 그 굳은 결의를 했던 그 친구가 순교한다는 이야기를 들었을 때 절망이라고 그럴까 무너지는 거. 그랬을 때 그분이 어떻게 일어날 수 있었느냐.
Father Choi Yang-up desperately wanted to be martyred. My people are so great, and my compatriots have already received the order of martyrdom. When will I be able to fill the cup of the ordeal? I have sought my Lord's will till the end.
그 양반이 기도하는 게 그거야. 이렇게 천한 것 아버지의 뜻대로 사용할 수 있으면은 저는 그것으로 이렇게 족하다.
While staying in Hong Kong with a fervent desire to return home, Choi Yang-up was recommended by Bishop Farrell to translate the traces of martyrs. It was translated in Hong Kong in 1847. He wasn't sure if it had properly written. Principal Rilgraja was asked to revise it so that it can be sent to the Holy See. Cardinal Jung said he taught Latin at a theology school and would place many dictionaries beside him to translate when there was no dictionary. Choi Yang-up's Latin consisted of 100 vocabularies for just one sentence, and he wrote such advanced Latin. I was told so, actually. Following the strict screening, the traces of the martyrs sent to the Holy See helped with the declaration of the Venerable in 1857 by Pope Pio IX. Therefore, the work of Choi Yang-up played a decisive role in the first stage of beatification of the Korean martyrs.
I am planning to wait for the French ship every day to find a way to Joseon again. I hope that I can succeed this time so that I can safely reach Joseon.
In the offing of Joseon, however, the French ship met a severe gust and was stranded near the Gogun-sando, so it had to land on Chinchido.
Once Father Choi Yang-up was in floods of tears. The homeland was right in front of his eyes that he could reach by swimming a little. The captain wouldn't allow him to.
He must have felt so sorry. In Joseon, the situation was pretty bad and he just couldn't go.
After so much struggle, I could just come this far. But now I have to return to Shanghai. So I burst into tears without realizing it.
In his life, all throughout, he lived by being led by God. Not even once he could do a thing based on his will. So in his letters, he keeps talking about providence, that he had to absolutely depend on God.
We still have not lost hope. We haven't yet despaired. Still, we search for God's mercy. We wholly depend on God's omnipotent and immensely good providence.
The most frequent expression in the letters of Father Choi Yang-up is merciful God. However, the reality faced by Choi Yang-up was relentless. While his God was so merciful, his actual reality was harsh and merciless. Choi Yang-up wondered how he could overcome and how things could be sublimated. He believed that God, later, will allow much better things to the extent of the mercilessness of the reality faced by us. He believed so till the end. Therefore, he remained gentle without losing peace of his mind in all situations.
최더마 신부님도 자기 부모를 떠나서 그 먼 곳을 가가지고 거기서 신부가 13년 만에 돼서 돌아오는데 그때 모든 것이 다 변하고 부모님도 다 순교하고 같이 갔던 김 신부님도 순교하고 그런 거를 예측이나 했겠어요?
There is no chance for me to return to my homeland by passing through the border security. None. But I just try believing my Lord's mercy. We think about the possibilities. I do too, a lot. Father Choe Yang-up didn't reason, reckon percentage or plan. He just left. What did he believe? Our Lord's mercy.
After 5 attempts to return home, he finally made it. In the midst of the cold winter,
Father Choi Yang-up passed through the harsh cold wind in the middle of the winter and almost reached Joseon. With a full-blown passion, he walked on the frozen land and came back home as he always dreamed.
At the end of 1849, he came back to Joseon and left for Chungcheongdo, where Bishop Perel lived. He went everywhere in that area. In 1849, King Cheol became king, and Father Choi Yang-up and entered Joseon. It's almost the same point of time.
It was politically chaotic. The social order was a mess. There was more and more corrupt officials, leaving the people in despair. Chungcheongdo, Jeollado, and Gyeongsangdo, which used to be fertile, had to go through exploitation more than anywhere else.
It was a mess beyond expression. We can understand that there was an external explosion after going through all the hardships. What is beneath a volcano? A large amount of lava boiling, from Hongyeong-ra's rebellion and the rebellion of Jinju peasants and slaves to Tongak peasant movement.
Father Choi Yang-up entered Joseon, and the hearts of the believers who met him were filled with warmth and passion. It is because he was the first Korean priest whom they met after 4 years from the martyrdom of Father Kim Dae-gun, the first priest who died only after 1 year of pastoral activities.
The time that I've longed for such a long time has come. Now I can give my letter about my brothers that I missed so much.
He enters the Catholic beliefs when the sun goes down, not to be seen as much as possible and not to disturb his companions. He invites all the companions living separately from each other, administer the sacraments, serve Mass, and receive communion daily. Then, when the rooster crows, he leaves.
He comes as stealthily as to be called a street cat at night to meet the believers.
When we arrive in a certain Catholic village, everyone, regardless of gender and age, change clothes and come in a group to greet the priest. When I leave the place, everybody cries and the space is full of lamentations. Some would catch my sleeve so that I can't leave. Sometimes they would climb up to the mountain ridge to see me leave for a longer time.
It said that they put their tears on his clothes as a token when he left. They also climbed up to the mountain ridge to see him off until he was no longer seen. Then I think that he was together with people, letting them grow and live.
The believers live in rough mountains that are not arable. While traveling all around the Catholic villages, I often witness miserable and poor conditions of people suffering from extreme poverty. Under the harsh tyranny of the cruel government, they suffer from various types of extortion, fall into inescapable and miserable troubles, and cannot even enjoy the slightest freedom.
Just like an X-ray, the eyes of the priest who has studied abroad witness all the things in the later period of Joseon.
Really poor people. At that time, these people were the believers. In their hiding places, they barely survived on grass as food. They didn't know when they would be caught. They thought that nobody would know their pain and suffering. Father Choi Yang-up witnessed all their weakness, pain, and tenderness.
The journey of Father Choi Yang-up was always filled with ordeals, sorrow, anguish, and pain. He regretted his limit and shortage, that he couldn't do anything for them. He tried so hard to reach the believers in much pain as near as possible. In Joseon, the Confucius Society, the difference between men and women was a first idea. Father Dalai, in The History of Korean Catholic Churches, wrote, "Women cannot leave home without their husband's permissions, and thus, female believers couldn't participate in the sacrament at all." Maybe because of this, the seventh letter is full of the stories of female believers. In the seventh letter, we can feel his heart after giving an apostolic blessing at the house he entered for soul winning for Anna.
Putting in an expression nowadays, like a 007 spy project, Father Choi Yang-up told his sister Anna to write down to confess in advance, as he wouldn't have time for the sacrament. On the following day, Father Choi Yang-up sat down like this, like a traveler taking a rest shade, and the helping man returned after receiving the note. Then he was told that at that moment there were only children at home. So Father Choi Yang-up ran fast, gave a sacramental absolution, and escaped the scene while giving the best gratitude to God, saying, "Thank you, my Lord."
His letters are filled with the hardships faced by female aristocrats to keep the faith, the difficulties experienced by unmarried women for faith to keep their chastity, and other vivid feelings that he had over these matters. He visited them, consoled them, and eased their pain.
He didn't just love God and neighbors. His feelings were so deep for his fellow believers, experiencing difficulties as if he were in their place. Choi Yang-up, the father's love for God and neighbors with all his heart and passion. I feel deeply about this. I try so hard to emulate him.
Oh, Father, Thank you for your precious time.
When I was living in coal mining town, each time I strolled in the village in the morning, every house threw away the brick and ashes from the night. One day, I thought that a briquette was talking to me. You have become so white as you have been burnt completely. Your hair is white. Have you been burnt too? But thinking again, I have never been burned. I must have been burned completely just like you. I just seem to have so far away to go be like you.
Father Choi Yang-up stayed at Bati priest's office for 3 years and translated the prayer book written in Chinese letters and catechism into Korean. And he wrote and widely distributed Catholic lyrics written in Korean so that anyone could memorize it easily.
Thanks to Easy Hunger Korean alphabet, the believers now can learn Korean doctrines even in the mountain valley. Korean alphabet consists of 10 vowels and 13 consonants, and anyone can learn very easily to read and write.
His Korean works played an extremely important role for Catholic to become embedded in the soil of Korea. Furthermore, it had greatly contributed to popularization of Hangul. This is Korean calligraphy. It took a little more than 12 years to write this. It would be fair to say that I met Father Choi Yang-up a little earlier than others.
Originally, Catholicism started by the prestigious families such as Dasan, Chong, Yak-yong, and Lee-byuk. However, they all went to the mountains after Ki-han persecution. In the mountain, there was no teacher, no book written in Chinese letter, no school, no Bible, and no catechism. There were so many illiterate people who had never learned in their lives, kept walking and playing in water like this. Is there a good way? Right, we have Gasa in Korea. Father Choi Yang-up was filled with love for the believers. Necessity is the mother of invention.
In fact, it is easier to memorize by singing. You just do it and you feel that it has become yours one day.
The last letter says that there were 1,000 believers following him around this place. That time, you didn't have a microphone to reach a crowd. From grannies to children, all of them learned by hearing and talking. They just knew although they didn't understand the letters. He wanted to teach the believers who were living all types of miserable and dazzling lives of faith as much as possible.
He felt that all the grannies in the Catholic villages were seeing in the end after 1 to 2 years. I saw grandmothers in Betty, Jincheon who were singing the words.
Inducing the believers to live within the gospel was so excellent.
I believe that his literary talent was important. It is such a treasure also in terms of history of Korean literature. Father Choi Yang-up's Catholic lyrics became the foundation of naturalization of Korean Catholicism.
Around this backward area, There were so many villages inhabited by believers. The old people told me so. It has been 5 generations, and so Father Choi Yang-up was within them. The second father in Korea lived there and established the theological seminary. 2 people were sent abroad, so I heard.
This spot is the most important one here in Betty. This is the place where Korea's first theology students were taught. Whenever he visited a Catholic church, he couldn't forget about the believers who wanted to stay with him longer and held onto him by the sleeve and shedding tears while asking him to stay longer. Being the only Korean priest, he was so dedicated to cultivating the theology students.
신부님 직접 포크레인을 해주시네요.
반갑습니다.
In fact, Father Choi Yang-up taught the theology student in Betty. One of them is our John Kim, who was sent to Penang, Malaysia. The school advisor wrote about his personality in Latin. One sentence.
As we fathers and the theology students recognize the spirituality of Father Choe Yang-up and learn well, we can vividly picture the specific appearances that make us think that we must live to become such a person as a pastor. The patron saint of all the parish priests of the entire world, Jim Marie Vianney, is a foreigner. However, I think that Father Choi Yang-up, my senior who lived here right with us, provides much more specific models and examples to us than Father Gian Marie Vianney.
He walked for 12 years. Where did he go? The entire South Korea was his place for pastoral activities. He couldn't walk during the day like we do.
The persecution took place locally. If people in Gangwon-do were persecuted, others in Chungcheong-do were not. The true believers were connected to each other and promoted safety. This way, they could keep their faith.
In the following letter, we can find the traces where he ceaselessly visited Catholic villages without avoiding the dangerous and remote areas. Even the foreign missionaries wouldn't dare to go.
The Catholic village I reached after walking for 3 days and nights is called Mansan, located on the top of the mountain as high as to be called the Alps of Joseon. A family who left home at the crack of dawn walked 40 kilometers. They were attacked by bandits on their way and had a narrow escape to reach the secondary station just by evening. Imagine how deeply and thankfully I prayed to God looking at their faces. In a few days, I will depart for a new Catholic village 280 kilometers away from here. This Catholic community was recently formed by a believer who was exiled. He spread the seed of gospel by this servant who was working for a rich family. The master man of the household learned the truth of Catholicism and became a passionate believer. While putting her faith through activities, she was discovered and caught by her husband. Since he was angered, tried to change her mind by threatening and whipping. However, the lady decided to die. While she was dragged to the police office, the husband, finally being touched by her solid courage, changed his mind and brought her home again.
A young man who lived in Conway visited the mission station and asked to learn about the doctrine several times. Then he spread the gospel to his family and neighbors. Next year, he promised to prepare a mission station in his village after fully being prepared for baptism.
Next year, when I reached their houses, a surprising scene caught my sight. As soon as I entered and greeted, even before I spoke, all the believers were overwhelmed by a certain emotion and began to wail bitterly. It took a long time to calm them down. Then I was surprised again when I entered the room and examined. Young children, just 8 to 10 years old, were chanting prayers so smoothly, and the scene was so mysterious. In contrast, the elderly, despite learning the scriptures all day long, was having such a hard time and couldn't even recite a word, which made me so pathetic.
As the letter says, there are so many places where only the people of Joseon can go, such Catholic villages. The police officers or non-Catholics would enter, and there were situations where running away was necessary.
Still find the darkness and invisibility so valuable and gratifying while walking on the path.
In the midst of the desolate environment in Chosun, while visiting 127 mission stations, he had to walk 40 or 80 kilometers, even when there were only 1 or 2 houses in the mountain, where even the foreign fathers couldn't reach.
Risking the danger, they would come out to see the father once. On the second occasion of his visit, the entire village welcomed him and cried when he left. Seeing such a believer, he gained strength. Witnessing the believer's passion, he was strengthened, and thus, the affection between them was so solid. In other words,
How could he leave such believers? He must have wanted to die as early as possible. Therefore, his motherly love that endured is penetrated into the believers, people of Joseon, and poor and weak women just like the paint. It dissolved and spread everywhere.
Just like a flower that blooms in silence and emits fragrance in full bloom, the life of Father Choi Yang-up was like the scent of a flower that just had to endure, refrain, and wait.
When will a man become the happiest? Perhaps when he feels being loved.
이분이 그냥 달릴 길을 달렸죠. 하느님의 뜻을 위해서. 그분의 삶이라고 그러면 다른 걸로 표현되지가 않아요. 모든 힘을 다해서, 모든 정성을 다해서, 내 목숨을 다해서 사랑하는 거.
When I was a high schooler, I had a vacation and came home. I saw my father plowing a field with a cow. It looked fun. I said that I would try once. Using the reins, he hit the cow to plow. But after plowing, my field was uneven. So I asked, "Father, you plow so rightly, but I can't no matter how much I try." Then my father said, "Look, there is a pile of fallen leaves. While plowing, look here and there. If you do that, you can plow rightly." I thought that plowing a field is a reality, and something remaining unshaken is something that never changes while you live your life. I mean that it'll be God. While I live within a reality, aiming at something that never changes or shakes is to live a life well in a balanced way.
On both sides, the Alps-like mountains were rugged and soaring. Each time I entered each mountain, I saw the believers sitting down and living religious lives.
Mungyongsaja Pass, located between Gyeongsangdo and Chungcheongdo, was the path that he crossed mostly for his pastoral services. His body became tired more and more while climbing the rugged mountains, but thinking about the believers who were earnestly waiting for him while hiding in each valley, he just kept on walking.
While walking down, he encountered the believers again and went out to the Yeongnam-dae-ro again. It was possible as he was Korean. In Myeonghaemok here, there is no other way. You walk this way, go to Sangju. Wait in Myeonghaemok and finally travel Yeongnam areas.
I believe that it would have been hard just with the hope to cross a hard way. Without the mission to do God's work, he wouldn't have been able to cross this area while being so tired and weak. Walking this path, he must have relied on his friends in heaven. Reminded of Father Choe Yang-up, I can't say that I am having a hard time. I just walked in silence while thinking about his time. Gathering in the mountain, they must have found their prayers come out so naturally. Having hardship together, praying together. They came here to hide and prayed, it seems. People are great. They put the cross and the statue of the Virgin Mary. There are candles and sitting cushions for prayers. What is this? The voices of boys of Joseon were hoarse and out of tune. So he wanted to change this and learn the music. He asked to buy and send an accordion that cost 30 francs. The father used to be a seeker of enlightenment.
When Catholicism entered the country with the ideas of equality for all, breaking of superstitions and the spirit of enlightenment, it was such a great event. This certain was. They say that everyone was equal. From the perspective of the aristocrats,
They were a very dangerous group. However, for the people, it was such a brilliantly strong light.
The current system of Joseon's aristocracy is a social structure that presses the miserable people to become more wretched. Without considering the original birth, in case of officials being employed based on their talents and personalities, the chronic discrimination of classes will be easily corrected.
The aristocracy system must be abolished. That was the first public outcry in Korea.
That was what Father Choi Yang-up did in this country. He talks about freedom, equality, and human rights. Who would talk about human rights in the society of Joseon? Nobody.
Let's understand that in other countries, there is slavery to two different races. But in Joseon, everyone was from the same nation, but some were chattels. For example, if a female slave gave birth to a twin, who would be most pleased? Her aristocratic master, because his was doubled. At that time, the aristocrats could live well without working at all. What is that? It was extortion. They preyed on and blackmailed.
It was Father Choi Yang-up who led the people who were discriminated under the social class system in his era to live a life as a whole human beings based on equality. From this perspective, he was the best pioneer of Joseon.
한국 교회에 당을 만들어 놓고 그렇게 열심히 하고도 그게 드러나지가 않았다. 그런데 그런 얘기는 우리가 할 수 있는 것이 아니라는 생각이 들어가요. 왜냐 그러면 진정으로 주인 모습이고 정말 하느님의 끝뜻을 하느님의 사랑 안에서 이렇게 실현하는 사람들을 어떻게 우리가 세상적으로 그걸 이야기하고 평가를 할 수 있겠느냐.
We are just beating our chests as if being chained all the time. I've become so weak, and I can walk on my own just 16 kilometers a day. It seems that I have completely lost all the vitality of my youth.
He lived 12 years spending each day as if being martyred, 365 days a year. His daily life was harder than one martyrdom. In times of the persecutions, we must testify by giving our lives. But now is not the time of persecution. The things have changed. The truly martyrdom, just like Father Choi Yang-up lived his daily life, is to bring out joy from little things, listen to others, and talk genuinely. It seems to me that such things are truly needed in our time.
The Gongxin persecution took place between 1859 and 1860. Considering the size, it covered the entire country. The Gongxin persecution covered southern Gyeongsang-do, Ulsan, here in Anyang, and some parts of Chungcheong-do, in the north.
It is estimated there are so many Catholics in the entire country. It seems the government has come to a conclusion that it is impossible to imprison all the Catholics. The police officers instigate and urge people to persecute the believers. Such an approach of persecution is much harsher and even more fatal.
The peg of those Catholics, they have accumulated a lot of wealth. You can take their property away from them. They also have mature and pretty but unmarried daughters. Go at night to kidnap such girls.
Those people pledged to believe in God and live a good life while loving their neighbors. But they were deprived of their property and had to hide in the mountains here and there. Even then, they would have to die if caught. The police officers received rewards if they discovered and caught a believer, so they were even more desperate to catch them. Also, based on the community surveillance and reporting system, if the neighbors found and caught a Catholic, they could share his property. Also, they always doubted if someone was a Catholic. Otherwise, all of them would be punished because of him.
An attrition and nerve-wracking strategy was being forced. The perpetrators were not the police officer, but the non-Catholics who spent friendly years right beside them.
If I were him, I would have resented and said, "Why do you make the good believers suffer so much every day?" But Father Choi Yang-up thought that all the ordeals would train us to be stronger.
The questions such as what life is, what death is and what eternal life is must have occurred to Father Cho while he was on his way. He must have suffered alone, but stood up to walk again.
Who are in his life, father and mother, then Father Kim Dae-gun, his closest ally, was martyred. He was the only one alive. It means that everyone around him that he knew so well, was close to and was familiar with was gone. Even if it is the pain suffered by himself, it is nothing compared to such things.
자기는 그분들이 간 길을 따라갈 수 있는 어떤 공적도 자기는 세우지를 못했고, 그랬으니까 아주 그 비천한 자기의 모습, 그런 모습을 자기가 이렇게 고백을 하잖아요. 홀로 거기에서 어떤 그 어둠에 갇혀서 그 절망 속에서 이렇게 그 눈을 들어서 하느님을 외쳤을 때 그 모습 이렇게 가끔 저는 상상을 하거든요. 처음에는 나도 그거를 그 생각을 하지도 못했는데 이게 편지 보고 저는 울면서 정말로 울면서 그 생각을 했어요. 어디에서 이분은 이걸 받았을까?
He had nothing to cling to. There was only God. So he wasn't even afraid of death by then. It was the cross that enabled him to gaze at death. The faith held by Father Kim Dae-gun, Father Choi Yang-up, and many martyrs was that you would never be able to be glorified unless you bear the cross of your own.
십자가에 힘을 달라고, 그리고 십자가에 그 지혜를 달라고, 그거를 내 마음속에 달라고 이렇게 매달리고 기도하는 거 아니에요? 그랬을 때 그 십자가의 그 힘, 그것이 뭘까? 그리고 십자가의 그 지혜, 그것이 뭘까? 그 사랑을 위해서 치러야 하는 어떤 것, 져야 하는 어떤 것, 그것을 내가 받아들일 때, 이것을 해야지 할 때, 그때의 힘뿐이 아니라 자유가 오고 거기서 기쁨이 오고 이렇게 그런 것이 아닐까.
Can you earn as much money as you want? Can you control your wife or husband the way you want? What about your child? Can you control your life the way you want it to be? Then, what is the conclusion? Nothing is accomplished the way you want it to be while you live. If you try to avoid something unavoidable, then your life will become hard. If it is unavoidable and you accept it happily, then your life will become much easier and not difficult. That is the secret of our lives.
죽으면 산다. 최 신부님은 그거에 대해서 완벽하게 체득을 하고 살았는데 우리는 그럴 수가 없다.
50 years ago, on September 16th I was ordained as a priest, and offered my first Mass on this site on the 17th. It's been 50 years. So far, I've tried to walk on the path that the Father walked and lived, but my 50 years have never even got near it.
Vitime Pascali laudes, imorem Christiani, agnus redemido fe.
In the 11th year since his return for pastor visits, Father Choi Yang-up had to live a secluded life in Jungnim-gu due to the Gyeongshin persecution.
I am confined to one corner of the deepest place of Joseon. There is no hope of escaping from the siege by the police stamp, which keeps tracking me wherever I go.
Based on the records of Father Ferrong, Father Choi Yang-up could rest only for 4 days a month, as he was excessively dedicated to pastoral visits to administer the rites that had not been properly made due to the persecutions.
At the end of the 19th letter, he provided his work report that had been suspended due to the persecution. More than 1,000 people confessed until then. The number of the baptized, several hundreds of catechumens. These records were given at the end of the letter. While reading this, I realized that this is the true priest.
The tavern in Mungyo he often visited at normal times while he was going to present the progress report on the Gyeongshin persecution to the bishop after finishing it. Physically, he was almost exhausted and his immunity fell. Food was not good, and he caught typhoid.
Arriving to see him after being notified of Father Choe's critical conditions, they found him unconscious and unable to talk. Still, he kept calling Jesus Maria, Jesus Maria.
Amor tuis fere, tu nobis victore.
Then, he passed away in 8 hours.
사랑이라고 그러면 사랑, 그리고 봉사라고 그러면 봉사. 맨 마지막까지 가다가 쓰러지는 거기. 그럴 때 어떤 기도를 했을까? 하느님, 여기까지입니까? 그랬을 거 아니야.
Bishop Bernard recollected that Father Choi Yang-up was a very precious person to us, who possessed strong faith, fierce passion for salvation of the souls, and very valuable and excellent discernment.
What is visible and what is invisible? What is invisible sustains what is visible. What sustains this tree is the root buried under the ground. We live without remembering and are obsessed with what is visible too much. We live while misunderstanding that what is visible is everything. So, when we become little lower or unseen, we misunderstand that we are not important.
Will you be praised just because you always win the first place? You deserve to be praised if you ranked 25th, while you have always ranked 50th. I just hope that we can bring about joy from very little things in our daily life. Rejoice together and laugh brightly. It seems to me that these are his words. I think that Father Choi Yang-up wandered around every part of Chosun with such a determination he won't stop. Even if his body is broken and he's died on the road while walking, he dreams that everyone becomes happy together, not only himself. We, right here. And I must make it come true.
Father Choi Yang-up is such a great role model. I have this wish to travel with him if I lived at that time.
I believe that he was a really good shepherd who truly loved his countrymen and shared their pain.
We can say that he's the one who became a path while walking the path on the path.
이렇듯한 풍진 세계 안거할 곳 아니로세 인간 영복 다 얻어도
Dae-gun, keep going forward. I will take care of what is left behind.
Father Kim Dae-gun played the role of the father of Korean churches, while Father Choi Yang-up lived in the fullest by staying alive. No matter what, just protect the churches like a mother.
우주간에 비껴서서
What is jung?
Something like our blood. Korean.
They say jung is really scary. They say that it is scarier than love. I don't know what jung is, but this also must be shared within God, if it is to be shared properly till the end.
Listening to the sound of water like this, I feel so blessed. On many occasions, we find troubles in life. Sitting like this and listening to the sound of nature, I just feel that I am becoming one with nature.
양업 신부님 걸으신 그 길 겸손한 담의 길 따르렵니다. 예수 주